I mean, I'm pretty annoyed that the Prime Minister is reverting to outright lies.
Well, that's a big thing to say.
No. Outright lies.
Keir Starmer never saw it coming. Live on television, Nigel Farage tore straight through Starmer's carefully polished image, exposing what he called a series of uncomfortable truths. From quietly supporting the UK's surrender of the Chagos Islands to backing down under Donald Trump's trade tariffs, Farage held nothing back. Even more striking, Starmer wasn't even in the room, yet still walked away politically bruised. So what exactly did Farage reveal, and why did it leave Starmer scrambling to save face? Let's break it down.
Huge concern about these tariffs. Were they avoidable?
Well, he said he'd put tariffs on. He was elected to do that. And of course, he's put us in the lower tier, the lowest tier. Interestingly, EU 20%, UK 10%. By the way, I'm not pretending 10% is good.
No.
It's just less bad than it would have been without Brexit.
It's all down to you then, because you took...
Well, it's something that most of the commentariat can't really see.
Do we owe you a thank you then, Nigel Farage, for getting us out of the European Union and avoiding these tariffs 9 years later?
Well, but I think we should go much further than that. I can tell you this. I sat down face to face with Trump in 2017. He said, we want to do a deal with you guys. I want to show the world I believe in trade if it's fair, if it's right, if it's good for both sides. But of course, we didn't do a deal. Why? Because the Conservatives didn't take us out of the European Union. We went through the whole of 2017, 2018, 2019, and on it went. And by the time we finally left the European Union, frankly, it was all a bit too late. We did, however, do a lot of negotiation. 2/3 of a deal is there on the table. And it was really interesting to hear Jonathan Reynolds this morning. Because on the one hand, you've got Ursula von der Leyen of the European Union saying, we're going to retaliate. And Jonathan Reynolds saying, no, we're not going to retaliate. We're going to look to ways, not just to erase tariffs, but to go further towards a trade deal. And it's very interesting for a Labour government.
This could have been a turning point for Britain, a lifeline during difficult economic times. The UK was offered a rare opportunity, direct face-to-face engagement with one of the most pro-UK American presidents in decades. But instead of seizing it, Starmer and his inner circle didn't just decline the offer. They actively undermined it. Rather than pursuing an independent trade path, they chose to realign with the EU, even if it meant sacrificing a tailor-made US trade deal that could have boosted the British economy. This wasn't a diplomatic misstep. It was an ideological decision. For Starmer and his globalist allies, obedience to EU rules was treated as political sophistication, while Donald Trump was dismissed as too uncivilized to engage with. Yet that same president put a deal on the table that might have shielded ordinary Britons from inflation crisis we're now facing. Starmer's approach was simple: delay, deflect, destroy. Then pretend it never happened. Now he speaks of resetting the UK-US relationship, as if the public has forgotten how he mocked the very man who tried to help. No wonder Farage says Starmer is quietly steering Britain back toward the EU.
That you're here today, because in 2019 Boris Johnson targeted this area because he believed that there was a sentiment to get Brexit done. Yeah. 6 years later, we heard yesterday that Labour is actually considering ECJ oversight of agricultural goods. What message does that really send to what is traditional Brexit heartland in lots of ways?
Yeah, I mean, Starmer will oversee record numbers of illegals crossing the Channel. Starmer will oversee legal migration still running at huge numbers, although the net might be a bit low because so many people are leaving. Clearly, as far as the EU is concerned, he's creeping back in a little bit by little bit by little bit. But it's bigger than that. I just don't think I don't see him malice in him or anything like that. He's got a nice blow. I just don't think when he speaks or just the way he performs, this doesn't connect.
Farage didn't stop there. He also called out Labour and Starmer for what he described as blatant hypocrisy.
It's very interesting for a Labour government, led by a Prime Minister who wanted a second referendum. They're now actually behaving a bit more like Brexiteers. Fascinating.
Using the powers that Brexit gave them, because it's on them.
Using the powers Brexit gave them on this, and also on foreign policy. When the reason, we can come to Ukraine, and I'm, by the way, very, very cautious about sending British troops on the ground in Ukraine for an undetermined period of time. But even acting as he's trying to do as the bridge between the European members of NATO and America, Brexit has benefited this Prime Minister.
Extraordinary, isn't it?
You almost have to admire the audacity of Keir Starmer. This is the same man who campaigned aggressively to overturn Brexit, and now he presents himself as a defender of national sovereignty. But let's be honest, this isn't patriotism. It's political theater. This is the man who pushed for a second referendum, who said Brexit voters were misled and didn't understand what they were voting for. Now he quotes Brexit powers as if they were sacred scripture.
Most of the conflict with the UK being outside of the UK arises insofar as the UK wants to diverge and do different things to the rest of our EU partners. Obviously, the more we share values, the more we share a future together, the less the conflict. And actually, different ways of solving problems are become available. You know, actually, we don't want to diverge. We don't want to lower standards. We don't want to rip up environmental standards, working standards for people at work, food standards, and all the rest of it.
The truth is, Starmer doesn't believe in Brexit. He believes in polling. Right now, nationalism tests well, so he wraps himself in the Union Jack while quietly dreaming of Davos. This isn't about securing borders or protecting sovereignty. It's about protecting his personal brand that we've seen this flip-flopping before, on immigration, on net zero, on defense spending. Every move feels reactive, not principled. It's all performance. And now Nigel Farage is tearing that mask away.
Campaigning for a public vote. It's right that Parliament has the first say. It's right that Parliament has the first say. But if we need to break the impasse, our options must include campaigning for a public vote, and nobody is ruling out Remain as an option.
Before we continue, if you're finding this breakdown useful, please like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. We cover the major shifts shaping British politics, straight and unfiltered. Now back to the story.
Have you talked to the White House? Are they using you as a back channel? We thought that might happen when he came in, and right now would be quite helpful.
What's really interesting is that in the first term, I spoke to the White House quite a lot. In this term, I haven't, because I can't be seen to interfere unless the government wants me to be useful or to be helpful. I have said many times, I don't just know the president, I know half the cabinet.
And you've told Keir Starmer that on the floor of the House. You offered it, playing privately.
I've done it many times. They're choosing to go their own route, and fine. Perhaps they're better qualified than me to do it. I just think that, you know, when it comes to the people holding the big key jobs in economics, I just happen to know these people, happen to be friendly with these people. Look, I repeat the offer. If the government wants me to help, I would help, and I would do it. Even though they're a Labour government, I do it in the national interest.
This is where Starmer's pettiness turns dangerous. Farage wasn't asking for a job or seeking personal glory. He was offering genuine diplomatic access, connections no Labour advisor could match. Starmer rejected it outright. Why? Because Farage would have received the credit. This wasn't just pride, it was ego, played out at the expense of British businesses now choking under US tariffs. While Starmer plays political chess in Whitehall, companies across the country are paying the price. Love him or loathe him, Farage holds the keys to serious transatlantic negotiations. Instead of putting the country first, Starmer treated the economy as collateral damage in his war of vanity. And when Farage called out his lies, he was right to do so.
I'm pretty annoyed that the Prime Minister is reverting to outright lies.
Well, that's a big thing to say.
No. Outright lies, saying that reform fawned over Putin. I've never heard such rubbish.
But that's your remark, saying he's
No. I said in one sentence 12 years ago that I respected him as a leader, but didn't like him as a person and wouldn't live in
strong leader, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, well, there's no questions of what he is. That's why he's been there.
But that's fawning for them, isn't it?
It's almost as if there's no nuance of any kind allowed. You know, has Putin been a successful Russian politician? Well, up until the invasion in Ukraine, arguably yes. I've never liked the guy. We deplore the invasion. The fact the Prime Minister is sinking to these depths, I think it shows you, despite what's happening on the international stage, domestically, this government's become very unpopular very, very quickly. And my nervousness is this. Back in the early 1950s, there was a settlement to end the Korean War. Korea divided North and South with the divide, and the Americans, us to some extent, but the Americans said they'd put an army in to maintain the peace. 72 years later, there are still 24,000 American troops in Korea. We went into Afghanistan in 2001. Little did we know we'd be there for 20 years. The British Army has been diminished since 2010. It's the smallest it's been for centuries. For every one man in the front line or woman, you need two behind, reserves, etc. So one, I'm worried the army isn't big enough, and two, I want the Prime Minister to tell me, if we send troops in, for how long, and what's the objective?
This is political rot at its worst. What Starmer did here wasn't accidental, it was calculated. He took a 12-year-old quote from Nigel Farage, ripped it out of context, twisted its meaning, and used it to suggest Farage supports Vladimir Putin. That isn't just dishonest, it's propaganda. Here's the reality. Farage said Putin was a strong leader, not a good man, not a role model, just strong. And that's a factual observation, not praise. Putin has held Russia together through brute force. That's reality, not admiration. But Starmer isn't interested in facts. Smearing opponents is easier than offering real solutions. He accuses others of being Putin's puppets while signing off on endless war, spending with no clear exit. He struggled to criticize Trump's remarks on Ukraine, yet somehow feels entitled to lecture others on Russia. And then Farage exposed what many see as betrayal, especially over Starmer's handling of the Chagos Islands. At this point, a pattern is hard to ignore.
Just briefly, other areas too. Chagos Islands, that deal has now been approved by the White House, we think, from government source.
Yeah, the reason the Americans have approved it is because we've said to them, don't worry guys, we'll pay for all of it. The Americans will not contribute a penny.
And that bill is how much again?
So nobody tells the truth on this because nobody understands simple arithmetic. The deal of $90 million a year for 99 years, that's pretty much uncontested, right? Even government doesn't fight back against that. £90 million a year for 99 years, linked to inflation. If inflation runs at 3%, and given the way compounding works, that would be a repayment of £52 billion. And frankly, right now, well, when you've taken away the winter fuel allowance, when you're threatening family farms, when the economy and the borrowing figures are in dire trouble, and when you're promising to increase the size of defence spending, why risk this money?
And it's hard to sell, I think, when that figure, they do challenge 90 million a year. We'll see where that ends up, but it'll be a lot of...
Well, I think everyone accepts, okay, but...
This wasn't just a financial mistake, it was a geopolitical disaster. Starmer surrendered one of Britain's last major strategic territories and paid billions to do it. In the process, he handed China an opportunity to move closer to the U.S. military base at Diego Garcia, a vital Western outpost in the Indian Ocean. All of this for applause at the United Nations. A key military foothold lost, billions spent, and the decision branded as justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've just returned hot foot from a very full Mar-a-Lago. And I've spoken to several members, senior administrators especially, of the incoming administration who will be in the White House in 32 days' time. Let me assure you, there is very deep disquiet amongst all of them as to what this may mean for the long-term future of Diego Garcia and whether such deal would hold, given the precedent of the deal break over Hong Kong. They also can't understand why we would surrender the sovereignty of these islands on an advisory judgment from a pretty obscure court. But this is about sovereignty. Can we please, if we respect the sovereignty of Gibraltar and the Falkland Islands on the basis it's what the people want, can we have a referendum of all of the eligible Chagosians and let them decide what the future...
This is what post-nationalism looks like, global approval placed above national interest. Worse still, Starmer didn't even attempt to secure American backing. Farage then raised the grooming gang scandal, adding another explosive layer to the discussion.
And that the rape gangs, the Tories are leading the way on them all now. I know you've been pushing very hard.
Rape gangs, they covered it up whilst they were in power.
And now they're pushing for national inquiry with the votes in the House of Commons. Rupert Lowe's got a privately funded one.
No. Look, we took a private prosecution out against the Manchester attackers on the basis of two-tier justice. It worked. CPS then acted. I challenged the government to hold a national inquiry into the rape gangs. They responded by giving us 5 separate inquiries. There's no point me holding an inquiry into this or Rupert Lowe holding an inquiry into this unless it has statutory powers. Yes, of course the rape victims need to be heard. But what is shocking about this isn't just the abuse of the young women, it's the extent of the cover-up. And without statutory powers, We ain't going to get there. So yes, the Tories are playing catch up with us on virtually everything, having themselves in office done the opposite. And what they don't understand is that the breach of trust with them, with about half their voters from 2019, is so great, it isn't going to return.
This goes far beyond embarrassment. It's unforgivable. Thousands of victims, years of abuse, councils and officials who look the other way. And what does Starmer offer? Token local inquiries with no real authority, no power to compel testimony, and no accountability. Why? Because the truth is politically inconvenient. Because labor-run councils were involved in covering it up. Starmer's priority isn't justice, it's damage control. Farage is right to call it what it is: institutional betrayal. Victims don't need sympathy alone, they need the truth under oath. Yet Starmer's government appears more willing to let survivors suffer in silence than allow full accountability. That alone raises serious questions about his fitness to lead. If this analysis resonates with you, like the video, share it, and subscribe for more unfiltered coverage of British politics. More to come, stay tuned.